Hello, my name is Bishop Harrington. I am an RPA developer. Thank you for checking out my YouTube channel, Bishop H Automates. So my goal of this channel is to simply walk through some of the automations I have built, thought process, maybe some code, things of that sort. And with that being said, we'll go and get into one of the projects that I have built out. So this specific project is from Automation Anywhere. It's a challenge that I actually used UiPath Studio to build out, which added its own element of challenge itself. But let's get right into it. So the whole purpose of this bot that was built was to capture some transaction data. So this company, Food Mart Grocery Corp, is trying to finish out some of their books, but they realize they have a few supplier names missing on some of the transactions, right? So ultimately, our goal is to figure out exactly each supplier name for each one of these 12 transactions and to submit this information that would potentially shoot out some type of Excel spreadsheet. Maybe we'll send it to some other application. But our goal to determine exactly which supplier this is to go to Rusty Bank. That's the bank that they use. We would click on this login. As you see, we already have the username in right there. We have a username. We would have to come in, copy, paste the password. I'm going to get through this fairly quick. We would log in. After doing that, we would have to determine exactly which payment account was associated with these transactions. So for this one, we see we have 2839. We would click there. We would get the payment amount, copy and paste that. Let's get that right there. We would come to the search, paste it there, enter, and we have the description. All right, therein lies the problem. So Rusty Bank's website is not the best. It's fairly buggy, not a good interface. The code might be bad on the back end, but for this person that's trying to capture this information, they would have to log in each and every time. Even if they did remember password right here, it still would not work. Put the information in and capture that for each transaction. So what I built out was a bot that actually does just that, logs into the account, captures each supplier name, inputs it back into this website, presses submit, and therefore gets this bookkeeper, he or she, the accountant, the information needed to complete their book. So with that being said, let's get into the code. All right, let's get into it. So here we have UiPath Studio pulled up. First thing that you'll notice is that I decided to use the flow chart actually as a structure for breaking this bot down. I believe it flowed a little bit better. I attempted it once. The bot that I used originally was a little bit too linear because we needed a little bit of some decision making to take place, and we'll get into that in a minute. First item we're going to have right here is an open transaction, or actually an open browser. So this is going to open up the website that we initially used. We're going to move forward to using a data table. So I decided to use a data scraping activity. It's going to scrape the information in which we needed. Remember, that was the payment account and payment amount. Just those two items are what we need to be able to query the exact supplier name, depending upon which bank account it was. So I had to save this to a data table. That data table is called DT_transaction update. We'll be using that for a majority of the workflow, or actually the full workflow for this robot. I actually went ahead and added a supplier column to the data table as well, as that will be needed later in the work function. Going to go ahead and move forward. I used a right range workbook. I saved this data from the data table to an Excel spreadsheet, named it transactions update, because we will be pulling from this later on as we need to. Moving forward, we have a for each row activity. This essentially is a loop that I created. Of course, Automation Anywhere might have been a little bit faster using that. And I think this is why I stated that using UiPath Studio was a little bit more challenging, but nonetheless, I was able to make this work. Very simple. For each row within that data table, it's going to click Rusty Bank login, type in the password, type in the username. It's going to click login, and then depending upon exactly which account was on that row, we would that's going to determine what set of activities take place. Now, as you notice, I use a flow decision right here, flow decision activity. The conditions that I've set for each one of those, as we see here with a little bit of code, is current row dot item payment account. So depending upon the payment account that is on that specific row, we have a .toString .contains function, and that is going to tell the robot if that condition is met, move forward with these set of activities right here. If that condition is false, move forward to see if it contains savings 3842. And as we continue to move on for the other two accounts as well. Breaking down one of these activities, moving forward, we have click. If it is 2147 in this instance, we would click that exact account. Here we will pull from the data table the payment amount again. From the data table, we're going to pull that payment amount, which we'll use to query the exact supplier name. We have a send hotkey. It's going to press enter. And here we're going to actually get the supplier name. So what I did was save the supplier name to a variable, descript 2147 here, using assign activity to place that text and that which has been saved to that variable into that specific data row, and then we're going to exit out the window. So that is essentially each transaction. Remember, there's 12 of them for each row that's saved to the data table. 12 rows, 12 transactions. This is the function that's going to loop through that full process to be able to make that essentially happen. So as we move forward within the workflow, we add supplier names to the Excel spreadsheet. Again, we're going to update it using this activity right here. I believe this is a right range activity, correct? Back into the Excel spreadsheet. Once we do that, we move forward. And this is where we're actually going to place the actual supplier names into the transaction supplier name on the original website. So we use an Excel application scope. For each one of these, we used a read cell activity that is going to read the exact cell in that Excel spreadsheet. We're going to save the supplier name for each one of the 12 transactions. We're going to save it to a variable, and we're going to use a type into activity to place that name into the supplier name and go through all 12 transactions. After doing so, we then simply press submit and everything is finished. So, of course, this could have been approached differently. Last thing I'm going to do is show how it actually ran. So if you want to, you can tell me how you would approach this how you would approach building this bot differently. And I thank you for watching this video.